Devin Smith and his Green Tide. So, of course, like I just said, I think Green Tide might end up being a sleeper counter to the meta, and that's actually what Devin said as well. Now, what's actually good about this is because of Devin, I was able to get access to what the missions were. So that's pretty cool. So let's go over his list real quick, maybe a little bit of what he's thinking, some of his notes, and then we'll quickly go over the list, his opponent list, simply because there's so many changes that happen that these lists probably have changed as well. So we'll just give them a quick rundown, but because every list we're going to go over is 6 rounds, it'll still be good and in depth. So we have, yeah, Matt, what's up? Ooh, Bully Boys. I'm Bully Boy with you, man. All right, so we got Green Tide, triple Pain Boys. Now we've seen that some people don't bring triple, but Devin actually said, I think while everybody's trying to get big and lean, trying to get big and elite, I'm just gonna go for more bodies and just kind of gunk up the battlefield. It was a good call by him. Clearly, he had triple war bosses with ferocious show off. Love that. And then of course one of those Pain Boys had brutal but cunning. We had one weird boy with bloodthirsty belligerence, and then another weird boy on his own. I personally, as I've been running this, don't feel like I always need all the characters and all the weird boys. But in other cases, it's like having multiple weird boy units, so you can be in combat and then jump out of combat, so you're not fully stuck on it. Pain Boy, those units in your back pocket, so you can go for a secret mission if you were playing kind of passively, because the enemy can actually burn through you as a green side player, which does happen sometimes. So you're using your wall more as a threat. But in this case, because it's all meat, you're just kind of all going forward. So I don't really feel like you always need multiple weird boys. Maybe just one. You can only roll for one of the weird boy capabilities. Yeah, Matt was like, well, I just had the points for it. So I was like, yeah, I'm going for it. Then we have, but I actually still think that he did the really good approach of bringing a lot of stuff. He mentioned that he also did bring the weird boy because he was allowed to jump to screen out Bridgehead, right? So we know Bridgehead's gone. So this is something we're just taking food for thought as we go over this, guys, right? I like Green Tide. I still don't run this exact list. So he had 5 big fat units of boys, followed by 1 10-man unit of boys. So people ask me, is a 10-man unit of boys worth it? Absolutely. He's meant to do stuff early. Maybe he wants to go run on Terraform. Maybe he wants to go out pick a fight. Maybe he's bait for a heroic intervention. There's a lot of things that 10-man unit of boys can do. 1 truck followed by a Gretchen unit, 2 10-man units of commandos. This is kind of like that saturation thing. Some people have done full 30. It's like, okay, that's just more stuff, so it's right in your face. Green Tide's pretty slow. Therefore, hey, I want to take the initiative by just putting 20 boys across the battlefield. It could be just simply putting 10 and then keeping the next one for the next line so it can do it next. And then you have 2 units of 5 Storm Boys. So that being said, I should probably move these. I wonder what you guys are doing in with the poll right now. I wonder what you guys are doing with the poll right now. Shout out to our sponsors, the Baron of Dice, as they helped us do our Waaaghtaktiks dice. So shout them out. Check them out in the description. 5% off in the discount because nobody likes taxes. And shout out to Baron of Dice. They allow us to do our paint competition. So thank you very much to them. So let's take a look at my gets list. So sorry, I went right here past it. Here it is. It's funny. Look at all 3 orcs got right next to each other in rankings, and they're all 3 different detachments, right? So we got Devin, he'd be Green Tide, and then we have a Tactical and then a Green Tide. A Dread Mob. So let's look at my boys list. Now, of course, I'll be reading some notes. So if I look like I'm like sounding weird or stuttering a little bit, it's because I'm reading some stuff from my boy Devin sent me. But it helps in context, right? And context matters. That's why we do these things. So let's go over his first opponent real quick, and then we'll go his point of view. It was Dark Angels. He said 15 Deathwing Knights, and the line is pretty much what you can see from here. Lines, Ballistic Dreads, Lancers, Scepters, Infiltrators, and then one of the inner circle champion squad. He said he could pretty much tar pit the Knights. He said he pretty much tar pits the Knights. Let me make sure I'm looking at this. Yeah. And the line was the hard part because his sweep profile of 16 attack, strength 6 -2, damage 2 meant that he was engaging with, he was able to chop through and cleave through boys really well. And because his fight first meant that he gets to fight first constantly. The opponent went first and he was in the center by turn 2. Right. So you could be like, man, maybe the commandos, if you went first could have held all that stuff back, which could have helped. Yeah, he said I went for a turn 1 jump onto his backfield to try to get it with reroll charges on Lieutenant. And he rolled a 1. However, between getting a good charge off on his Lancer on the Waaagh turn 2, he was able to get onto his home and then make it so he couldn't score much off that. Oh yeah, I should have said with the mission because I actually did have the mission here. So it was mission C, layout 7, by the way. He said day 1 was layout. By the way, I think he's on right now. Layout 6 and 7 were day 1. We're layout 1, and it was linchpin, fog of war, tipping point. Sorry, I should have said that first. Sorry, like I said, I'm going over the notes. Little ugly here. So since it was linchpin, able to get in his enemy's home objective, he was able to flip that pretty reliably. Like he said, he was just maneuvering the line was the only issue there. Other than the Deathwing Knights, he just kind of tar pits them, which is what I've always said. When dealing with Deathwing Knights, so 20-man unit of boys can kind of counter them for a little bit. So we have his second matchup. Let me make sure you guys can actually still see as I move through this. Yes, cool. Last stream, boy, it was cutting you off. So game 2, mission E, which was take and hold, prepared positions, hammer and anvil, and this was also layout 7 for him. He said this was against Bridgehead Guard. I did click the wrong one. No, I didn't. Devin. Yeah, I did click the wrong one. That second one. Sorry, guys. There we go. Which was against Bridgehead Guard. Look, we have these notes, huh? Which it had Ursula Creed, the Scion Squad. This has been pretty much nerfed into the ground. Narogo Dorn commanders and such. But like we said, he actually said he was able to jump, which is something I really wanted to do for that. He said turn 1, he took up the entire got turn 1, so he took up the entire middle of the field between his commandos and his jump and his deployment zone. He even got a jump charge off again on his enemy's objective home zone. So by the time his objective came down, it was over. This is something that people have mentioned that was a direct counter to the Bridgehead, is that they don't hold primary and they're not on the field. Therefore, that was just a straight up tactical decision by Devin to say hyper aggressive, jump onto his home. Love to see that. Then we go into his third game. Make sure I didn't mess that up. Which, surprisingly enough, was against the other org player who did well at this event. It's funny because Alex literally writes in his title, we're not covering his list, but he got shout out for doing well. 200 plus 50 points next data slate. So he knew how powerful his list was. Others basic triple Big Mac with shock attack guns, Big Mac and mega armor, a beast boss, and a war boss. The cool thing about his list, was, let's see, besides just the straight stuff, is he had some breaker bowlers alongside this max truck spam. So he ended, that's what I'm saying. His list was very similar in what we've been knowing the Tactical Brigade for. He said it was Mission K, which is Scorched Earth, Stalwart, and Search and Destroy. He said this game only went to round 3. He did not go to 4 or 5 because time ran out. Now, here's the thing that he also said earlier, I should have mentioned, that this event, they were having 3-hour rounds, but as soon as you hit the table, you started setting up, the timer started going. That means you had pretty much 2.5 hours for the whole game. And also rules were enforced that you had to put after 5 minutes were left on the clock for both players, you couldn't start another battle round. He said 2 of the 6 games didn't go on to the full game. So this was his game, one of his games that they both clocked out. This is something that I consistently expressed. If you were practicing, whether Tactical Brigade, you're playing Orcs competitively, Green Tide, whatever it is, the clock does matter. And I think it's pretty impressive that Devin still took it to the event knowing this was going to happen. So that also has to do with his low time. And like you said, it has to do with him running with a lot of bodies, which is why, some of the Green Tide lists are running less bodies. Yeah, we'll see what happens with the change to the busters, right? Obviously, the flash kits were a big deal to a certain point. He said that his opponent only staged up and killed his flash kits turn 1. But by the time it was turn 3, a lot of his stuff were dead by the insane amount of volume and shooting and everything that those guys were able to do. So yeah, I think just because these guys have been nerfed to the ground, we're going to talk about how that would look into Green Tide as that's changed so drastically, and these guys didn't really finish the game. But it was still a great job overall at the event. Is just like Alex said, he knew this was going to get nerfed into dust, and to a degree it did. No, his game was canceled, but you're here, my get. Then he goes into Salamanders, his next game, which is Firestorm Assault. He said this was Mission B, layout 2, which is Purge the Foe, Smoke and Mirrors, and Tipping Point. Funny enough, this guy had just like a ton of weird kind of cool Salamander stuff. It was Lieutenant, Vulcan Heastan, 30 Intercessors, Company Heroes, Lancer, Inferno Squad, Redeemer, Predators, Repulsors, and then Double Scouts. He said everything pretty much went up and it was aggressive. The opponent got turn 1. He pushed with the Land Raiders and Incessors and Vulcan. And he also charged some more and picked up some commandos. But seeing how aggressive it was, he just turned 1 and picked up Marines. And that's kind of what I always say, which is the thing why you bring the small units with your Green Tide list, is you're using those small units to kind of get the enemy to entice to come clean you up and charge you. So you don't really want your enemy to shoot you and dislodge you as the Green player with your little Green Tide player, with your little trash skirmish stuff. You want them to charge them and get closer to you. If anything, you want to pull off some heroics, right? That saves me in games with Green Tides where I pull off some crazy heroics. So then we go into this game 5. Then we go into this game 5. So great job moving up the field. You can see in how Devin's playing is that he's quite aggressive. The commandos do hold the line, but as people eliminate them, then he goes, okay, do I turn on wall? Turn on 2 wall. turn 1 Waaagh or turn 2 Waaagh, which unlike a passive green tide list where you would kind of try to Waaagh turn 3 because you don't want them to chew through you too early, so you use more of your skirmish to last longer. So he goes into his next game was Chaos Demons, which was Legion of Access, Cohort, Keepers, Secrets, Mask of Slaanesh, and the Chariot. You got Demonettes, Triple Fiends, Chariots, Seekers, and then a Soul Grinder. So only a couple units on that list for all the meat. But these units do hit hard and would just demolish your Tide players if you allow them to. He said never played that matchup. He had no idea what to expect, but it was the ritual. So I spent the first 2 turns making objectives and holding them for the entire game. Their correct move, you don't really want to try to go run up on them necessarily. They can kind of take the initiative for you and beat your butt. So you just want to rack up points and then hit them really hard. It's kind of funny, unlike the other ones. He said fiends hit hard, but the grinders, keepers do not have the volume. Yeah, the keepers and the grinders are the things that are kind of like the weaknesses here. The fiends though can definitely kind of one punch your bricks. Yeah, that's why he has 5 of those bricks. He said he was up a ton of points turn 3 when he pulled a whole call and he picked up 4 boy units. This is where I found out call does not have a point max. Yes, it does. It does not. Just so you know, call does not have a max. Yes, it does not if you're playing green tide. So they gave him 20 points. Pretty much by the end of the game, it tabled him, but he got 15 points. Yeah, got 15 points and another 10 from the secondary. However, he had matched his secondary scoring. Therefore, that he barely won this game by turn 1, by 1 point. That he barely won this game, pretty much getting tabled by the end by turn 1. Make sure I read that right. I thought he said that I lost that by turn. I'm like, oh, you won. No, but yeah, he ended up winning that game by barely 1 point because yes, the fiends and everything do chew through him by the end. But like I said to begin, him delaying it was actually the right move. Because that's what you. Then we go into his last game. We're going, which was against the demonic incursion. Yeah, because the other one was the demon nets, whatever. The fiends, which are now nerfed to the ground. But it's still a good lesson for if you're playing against stuff that can buzzsaw through you like 30 World Eater Terminator, something weird like that. So then we got 6 was mission game 6 was, sorry, I have it right here, was mission L on layout 1. That means it was taking hold. Hidden supplies and search and destroy. Boom. So as for what he said, is the greater demons do not have sweep attacks. The greater demons do not have sweep attacks. His opponents couldn't really kill off the whole unit, so he would just kind of tar up the middle objective and keep the opponents to really horrible primary. It was a fun game. So it was Keeper of Secrets, Greater Unclean One, Shalexi Hellbane, 2 big bricks of Nurglings, some Plague Bearers, some Beasts of Nurgle Flamers, and then 3x3 Screamers. So good old fashioned Green Tide making the rise of the Green Tide a real thing because everybody's looking at Mordaka and everybody's looking at War Horde and how can I just kill you? Yet there's a couple of these brave gets out here in the meta that are taking boys, breaking their backs to just tar pet everybody in the most iconic, classic way that you can play orcs, which is pretty much to bury them in bodies, flip primary, and not allow them to even play the game, which is what I love to see. Thank you, Devin Smith. War for the rise of the Green Tide. Be a cunning git and check out our new order markers that are in our store. So shout out to you gits being cunning. Help you guys get all the orders set on the table, nice and clean for all you gits to get stuck in. If you enjoyed the clip, check out the full video here. If you'd like to see more tactics, click here.
Let's get stuck in, lads!